Hello, everybody. This is LC Holt, and this is my update for the week of May the 27th. Last week of May, and this week we're going to be talking about the many faces of Batman. So light up your bat signals. We're going to be talking about all the actors who have portrayed him throughout the years, starting in 1966 with Adam West, leading into the modern iteration of Batman and the new casting announcement that came out about a week and a half ago, pretty soon. We'll save that for nearer the end. First, we're going to go over all of the established Batmans. I'm not quite sure how to say that. But before we get started on this, right over here to my right, you probably remember Rebecca Ivy.
Hello.
And we got Ryan Raynick. Say hi to the audience, man.
What's up?
And then we got Zach Myers. Zach?
What's up?
I love how when he said what's up, it cut to Ryan. Can we get a director on this show? Let's get a director. All right, let's try this one more time. And this time, Zach, just real quick, let's explain to the audience why, if you read the bottom of the screen, your box says Jennifer.
Oh yeah, that's my my pen name. I go by I was robbed yesterday, and I was robbed from my phone at gunpoint, and I was not able to. And so, out of risk of not being able to do the chat, my lovely wife allowed me to use her phone, and she is Jennifer, obviously not me. So
Allegedly.
What'd you say?
Allegedly.
Allegedly, I like that. Yeah, I'm the
with all this shit that's going on right now, that's just the thing. That's the trend.
Like, I've seen your old Facebook photos, man. I know what you do.
So are you telling me, Zach, that Batman failed you?
He did, and that bastard Spider-Man didn't come either. I mean, there was a fat guy that walked by dressed up as Spider-Man, but he didn't help me.
Nothing like a fat guy in blue and red leotards.
But then he could have just been wearing like a red, like a red sweatshirt and like blue sweatpants, and I just was like, fat Spider-Man, help me. But fat guy's just like, dude, what's your problem, dude? I'm just trying to walk in the store, man. Trying to get some Pringles, and you're trying to ask me for help. Did you?
Well, now that we've covered that mystery, let's jump into this Batman thing. As we did before, we've decided to randomize this list. We could do it in chronological order, Batman starting in 66 to modern day, but why do it the easy way? We're going to do it. That's right. We're going to do it like the Academy Rewards, along with some envelopes. You got those, Beck? Show those. So we got some envelopes here labeled 1 through 7 because there have been 7 Batmans. And we're going to go around picking numbers, and then Rebecca's going to open the envelope, and that's the one we're going to talk about first. So let me see. Who's going to pick our first number? I think since Zach has had the roughest couple days, and since Batman just failed you, why don't you pick the first number? You got 1 through 7.
Let's do my number 4.
Number 4. Who's in number 4? These were randomized. I don't know what's in there. That says what?
George Clooney.
Okay, well let's talk about this nipple suit here.
All right. So George Clooney only played Batman in one movie, and that was Batman and Robin in 1997. It was directed by Joel Schumacher. It was the second Batman movie that Joel Schumacher directed. And as Zach pointed out, Batman had nipples for the second time because he actually had nipples in the one previous two.
And the close up of the butt and the suits.
Yeah, that was weird. There was a lot of.
How can you forget about that?
But Alicia Silverstone?
Yes.
She was in that, and she had her breasts had nipples, and then they turned toward the camera and had a close up at one point. So Joel Schumacher was an equal opportunity rubber, anatomically correct, whatever. And then that had Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze and Uma Thurman.
Because we all know he looks just like Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, when I think of Mr. Freeze, skinny ass dome head, I think of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
With those god awful bunny slippers that he wore in there when he was singing, like, oh god.
And everything was a pun.
Didn't that movie have a good soundtrack though?
It had R. Kelly going Gotham City.
Oh, that's not the one then. Which one had the like?
That wasn't the good soundtrack I was thinking of.
Gotham City.
No, there was legit. Like there was one Batman movie that had a decent soundtrack. I'm pretty sure.
It was the one before. It was the one with
Seal and U2.
Seal and U2. Yeah, that one had a really good soundtrack, and it had Nick Cave on it. And
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that at all. Seal and U2. Yeah, no.
they don't have. What's the other one? That are you talking about? The theme or the actual song?
You know what? I might be thinking about. You know what? I actually think I'm thinking of the Spawn soundtrack. Now that I think about it, so which would make so much more sense. Yeah, I was way off.
Yeah, well, you got a dark guy wearing capes in a dark city. I mean, that's sort of
Close
close.
enough.
There's actually, when we were talking before we went on the air about like people here, there's actually a dark guy in a cape every day, and he's like, that's his like deal. Like he just tries to like get people to come over and take a picture with him. He's like fist bump, and like he gets random like he's out there every day.
Does he wear an anatomically correct suit?
He just wears like a similar thing to a Batman head and a cape, and with no
The
shirt.
sad thing is, like, that guy, Fist Bump Man, would have saved me faster than Pat Spider-Man.
No, Fist Bump Man would have legit saved you because he's like fucking huge.
Well, did I mention that Uma Thurman was in this movie? She's got like the weird hair, and she plays Poison Ivy. Yeah.
The shit you got to do to be in Kill Bill, huh?
Yeah, that's a good point, because that was the only, like, what did she do? Well, Pulp Fiction, right?
Mhm.
That was the only thing that wasn't the only thing she had done. She was in shit like Mad Dog and Glory that nobody watched, but I was like, Pulp Fiction started her career, and then there was Batman and Robin, which didn't help it. And then there was, because that movie was not a very successful movie because it was very cartoony and very bad. Yeah, it was really awfully bad.
I remember being a kid, I asked my dad to take me, and he did, and I remember how bad he hated it. I'm a kid, so it wasn't that bad at the time. You're just like shiny colors and shit. But fucking, yeah, I remember specifically my dad hated that shit.
I loved how with Mr. Freeze, they had to add in that he was an athlete.
That's right. They had to explain why he was so big and buff. Because there's a part in the movie where they show surveillance footage of how he came to be, and they point out like he was a football player or something, and then they show
athlete or something.
like somehow he was an Olympic athlete. Yes. That's right. And then they show this surveillance footage, and it's cut together like a movie. Like someone went in and edited the movie of him falling into the frozen liquid or whatever and coming out.
The angles were impeccable.
The angles?
The difference.
Yeah, someone directed that surveillance footage. And also the Robin in this equation was Chris O'Donnell, who had played Robin once before. And when we get to the actor who was in the movie before, we'll talk about that. But yeah, this was not this ended Batman for quite a few years. In fact, it didn't come back until Christopher Nolan. So it was quite a while. But this was a time when Warner Brothers was really more interested in the action figures they could make, because they had a lot of strange shit in Batman and Robin, like the hockey team from hell, and you could go and you could buy the hockey team from hell action figures and stuff. They really thought Batman was a kid's movie.
Which is why they had issues with Batman Returns.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll get to that when we get to...
that will roll into that pretty easily, because Batman Returns has a lot to do with the Joel Schumacher movies. Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, I think they played the whole thing wrong. Like, I think after the 3 Nolan movies, you shouldn't have done any more for 10 years. Because they were so perfect and so, so well done. That if you just took it away at that point and made people wonder when's there going to be, you could have made it, $1 billion every time you do one, type thing. And now you did it like the year after. Like, what the fuck? Like, you suck. Money hungry kids, you suck.
It wasn't long after. It was like because I remember at the time they were still asking Christian Bale, "Are you going to come back?" And he was still saying, "Well, if Nolan wants to do it, I might do another one and stuff." So he wasn't really done with the character. Because I remember when they cast Ben Affleck, and we'll talk about this when we get to him. Which we might want to go ahead and start drawing some more because we're going to start talking about actors that we haven't gotten to yet. But yeah, he was still talking about wanting to do another one with Nolan, and next thing you know, Ben Affleck is announced. So it wasn't.
Why would you want to break that up in the first place? Like it was going like that was.
Yeah,
but, that was like a moment in time you almost can't get back now. You fucked it up.
Yeah, well, you definitely can't get back the Nolan films. That's wrapped up and done. So anyway, let's do. Maybe we'll pick one of those guys next. Zach, it's your turn. Show him the envelopes. Which ones does he have left?
Yeah, I think I picked the last one.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Sorry, Ryan. I was leaving you out. That's right, because you Batman failed.
That's what you get, Ryan, for the camera switching to you.
That's right. Now we're going to go to Ryan. Hopefully, when Ryan says his pick, it won't cut to Zach. So tell Ryan which ones we have left.
We have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7.
Tony Kukoc.
Which one is that? He keeps throwing these things out at me. I don't know who these.
Kobe Bryant.
Michael Jordan.
No, 7.
7.
Boy George.
Yeah.
Paul McCartney. Val Kilmer. And that kind of leads us back into Joel Schumacher because
Ryan always picks the one that I want.
Well, I know that I think Zach, you've hinted to me a little bit about Val Kilmer, and I will tell you my opinion of Val Kilmer in general. But before we do that, I should say he appeared in Batman Forever in 1995. This was the first movie that Joel Schumacher directed, and the first movie to have Chris O'Donnell as Robin, even though originally it was going to be Marlon Wayans. Marlon Wayans was originally going to be Robin.
Okay.
So, yeah. So Zach, tell me, you seem very interested in talking about Mr. Val Kilmer. What do you have to say about Val Kilmer in Batman Forever?
Well, he's my second favorite Batman. I mean, everyone dogs on him, but I'm a big Val Kilmer fan. And when I watched, now granted, I didn't like. Now granted, Jim Carrey as the Riddler was kind of humorous, I guess, but I didn't care for the rest of the movie as much as, I don't know. I just thought he was a pretty believable Batman. I mean, I'm just also a Val Kilmer fan, so I'm just gonna go ahead and jump on there and say that he was a badass Batman. But people might disagree.
Ryan, do you disagree?
I gotta be honest, I haven't watched the Batman he was in since I was a kid, so I hardly remember it.
Fucking great.
It was not quite as cartoony as Batman and Robin, but it was heading in that direction.
Yeah, the villains were a little too cartoony for me.
Which ones? They were Two-Face?
Two-Face and Riddler. And even I thought Two-Face.
Yeah, Tommy Lee Jones is Two-Face and Jim Carrey is the Riddler.
It was just kind of like they were both trying to be.
I thought Tommy Lee Jones tried a little too hard at times as Two-Face.
Well, I mean, when I think of Two-Face, he's pretty serious a character. Mm-hmm. Like, he's got major psychological problems. And as the movie begins, you see Tommy Lee Jones's feet walking, and you hear him talking, and he's saying stuff like, well, justice is fair. And then it gets to a point, and he's just like, blind luck. And he just turns into Jack Nicholson and the Joker, and it's downhill from there.
Yeah.
And he goofs around a lot with the Riddler, which isn't something that Two-Face would do.
Yeah.
No.
What were you saying, Rebecca?
And in the Tim Burton films, we had a different Harvey Dent.
You did. You had Billy D. Williams. Lando Calrissian was originally.
So if they'd have kept him, he would have been Two-Face.
That's true.
They were going to, Tim Burton, when he was going to do the third one, which Batman Forever was part 3. he was going to have Billy D. Williams come back as Two-Face. But what happened was the Warner Brothers wanted to go a lighter route, and they got a little scared off by Tim Burton. And when we get to the Tim Burton movies, we'll talk about why they got scared off. But for now, we'll just say they got scared off because they thought Tim Burton was too dark. And so they decided to go the other route and say, these are kids' movies. So we need to bring somebody in that can make movies that we can sell toys from. And so that's how Joel Schumacher came into the mix. And when Joel Schumacher came in, he kind of bumped out all of Tim Burton's choices for casting. Mm-hmm. And he cast Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face, which, you know, and when you say that, that sounds like that could be interesting because Tommy Lee Jones is a great actor. Mm-hmm. But But I think it was more like Joel Schumacher telling Tommy Lee Jones, like, you remember how Jack Nicholson played the Joker?
I feel like it was mostly maybe he directed, because even with the Riddler, you know, I like my Riddler to be more serious. And it just feels like he was just trying to make a updated film version of the 60s series.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is very campy.
That's exactly what they did. They were trying to make how the original Riddler was real, like, you know, corny. And I can see in that sense why they picked Jim Carrey for that. And he also has he's real tall and lanky, like the Riddler was. So I can see why they picked him. But I think Tommy Lee Jones' performance just bothered me more than Carrey did. I don't know. It was just, maybe I expected more of Two-Face. I expected more of Tommy Lee Jones because he is a serious actor.
Well, at that time too, if you cast Jim Carrey, you kind of know what you're getting. I mean, you're going to get, you know, so you can't really be surprised when he plays it really over the top. But yeah, Tommy Lee Jones, I think maybe if both of the characters weren't played for humor, maybe one was serious and then you had Jim Carrey being goofy, that would have probably worked a little better. But
being the straight man,
yeah. And but the thing about it is there's actually a story about this because Jim Carrey he idolized Tommy Lee Jones and he was amazed he was going to be in a movie with Tommy Lee Jones. And there's a famous story that Jim Carrey tells about how he met Tommy Lee Jones at a restaurant. He went into a restaurant. They were both about to do Batman Forever. And the maitre d' said, well, you know, aren't you about to do a movie with Tommy Lee Jones? And Jim Carrey was like, yeah. And the maitre d' was like, well, he's over there at a table. And so Jim Carrey was like, oh, I'm going to go over and introduce myself. I'm about to work with this guy. This is exciting. So he walked over and he said hi to Jim Carrey. Or Jim Carrey said hi to Tommy Lee Jones. And Tommy Lee Jones looked up at him and was like, yeah, I don't really care for your films. He was like, I can't sanction your tomfoolery. And that from then on, like they just didn't like it.
Was that an exact quote?
No, it's not an exact quote, but it's pretty close. Like I wasn't there myself, but yeah, he just did. I wish I was. Yes, your tomfoolery. It was something like tomfoolery. I can't remember what Jim Carrey the actual.
I'm tired of your shenanigans.
Oh, I know what it was. He said, Tommy Lee Jones says, I can't abide your buffoonery. That's what it was.
Ooh, that's so much worse. That's like, oh, that's so much worse.
And then the best part is they got to go and make a movie together where they're in every scene. So
that's like in Gangs in New York, or you calling us chiselers? Like, you know, like, oh man, like that's so much. Oh, Tommy Lee Jones just gained so many points from me. Like, God, that's savage as fuck.
Maybe he was just bitter about Liar Liar. He saw it, was really looking forward to it.
You know,
like I wanted to be Ace Ventura.
You know what Jim Carrey said he thought the problem was? See, Tommy Lee Jones had just made a movie about Ty Cobb, and it came out at the same time as Ace Ventura. And when Ace Ventura came out, it blew the box office up, and nobody went to see Cobb because it was like real serious. And Jim Carrey says he thought Tommy Lee Jones didn't like him from Jump Street because he blamed Ace Ventura for Cobb not being as successful as he wanted it to be.
That's your fault.
That my fault? That's her fault. No,
it's his fault. You should have made better shit. Fuck.
I've never seen Ty Cobb, but it didn't really drag. I don't really want to watch it, honestly. It doesn't really excite me.
But you got to know what you're making while you're making it. You know if you're making a movie that's got a chance to be like 200 million, or if you're going to hope to get 2 million. You know, you got to know what, like, how can you possibly not know what project you're a part of? You got to like I don't remember when I was a part of a film that I think what were we, like, third that week? I don't remember who was above us, because why would you give a fuck? We weren't supposed to be like who was expecting number one? Like, how the fuck could you expect it? Like, people's, I don't know, just made me angry that just learning about this story just now. I'm like, dumb motherfucker. Like,
well, Jim Carrey too. I mean, nobody could have imagined Ace Ventura would have took off like it did. I mean, that was just such a fluke, you know.
How many baseball films were coming out in the early 90s?
There were a lot.
There were a ton of baseball films.
It was Field of Dreams. Most of them had Kevin Costner in it.
That's true. That's true.
They only made one major league movie.
And Sandlot. That was
Sandlot,
around the same time. Yeah.
Rookie
no,
of the Year.
Rookie of the Year. Yeah. Oh, another thing. Joel Schumacher, as I said, directed this one. And he also didn't get along with Tommy Lee Jones. And he also didn't get along
Boy, you care for his buck with me.
No, well, I don't think that Tommy Lee, well, I don't want to say a certain thing, but Joel Schumacher, if you've ever seen interviews with him, is, maybe not the kind of guy Tommy Lee Jones would have hung out with. I'm not trying to say Tommy Lee Jones maybe doesn't like gay people, but, he's not like a Texan cowboy. Joel Schumacher is no cowboy. And Jim Carrey also, Val Kilmer also didn't get along with Joel Schumacher, but that's not unusual because Val Kilmer didn't get along with anybody at that time.
He didn't get along with
No, at this point in time, Val Kilmer was such a massive asshole. Like, I just have to tell you a little story about the island of Dr. Moreau. I know this is going off of.
I knew this was coming.
Rebecca, but I knew this was gonna happen.
I knew it was heading that way.
I respect Val Kilmer as an actor, but as a person, he was an asshole. Because he used to take, like, on the island of Dr. Moreau, there would be a cameraman trying to get a shot, and he said Val Kilmer would come up behind him with a cigarette, because, Val Kilmer smoked all the time, and he'd take the cigarette and he'd put the lit cherry as close to the cameraman's ear while he was working as he could, just to see if he could get him to jerk and, like, mess up the shot. And there were times, like, on that set with Marlon Brando, where Val Kilmer was like, he was trying to get the acceptance of Marlon Brando, but Brando was kind of like, I'm not impressed with you, kid. And that really pissed him off. So there were, like, moments when one wouldn't exit the trailer before another. Like, Val Kilmer would refuse to come out of the trailer until Marlon Brando did. But if you know anything about Marlon Brando, he loves to get paid just to sit in his trailer. So that doesn't bother him. And it just bothers the crew and the other cast members, because Marlon Brando, if you just want to sit in the trailer.
Outdo him. You cannot outdo Marlon Brando's.
You cannot out lazy Marlon Brando.
He read lines off a diaper.
That's right. You're talking about a man who Marlon Brando is a great actor, but you're talking about a man who literally refuses to learn his lines and would only have an earpiece in so that someone could read the lines to him and then he would say it.
He's my kind of actor.
He's your kind of actor. So you can't out lazy Marlon. Marlon's going to get paid $1 million a day and not learn his lines. And Val Kilmer will just do whatever he wants to do. But
he must have a great agent.
Oh, man, Marlon Brando, he got so many good deals. Like Superman, the first Superman, he got $3 million for that movie at the time for like 3 days work, which in 1978 was like unheard of. Yeah, like movies didn't even make $3 million in 1978.
He made more than the movie made. Let's just say that.
Well,
I think Marlon was pushing the coke. I think it was all a cover up for his Denzel Washington-like movie of a life. He was moving all.
Did they spend more on Marlon Brando than the flying effects?
Yeah, well, they probably spent about equal, honestly.
This was just a way to hide the money, make a movie.
That's right. But that was that. And so I'm not, now I will say this, Val has been through some rough years. He had throat cancer. He's in terrible shape now. and I hope he doesn't. I don't think it's anything other than at that time he was a young, very talented, but very egotistical actor. And I certainly hope that he stays with us for a while because I don't want him to like shuffle off this mortal coil because he's gotten pretty close with the throat cancer. And if you've seen him now, he is not the Val Kilmer that of old.
There's a meme I saw of Val Kilmer when he was really fat, and it's a picture of him looking back when someone took a picture of him, and the meme says, "Hey guys, remember when I was Batman?" And he was like really fat, and it was really funny.
Yeah, before he got sick, he got really fat. That's for sure.
And my mom's in love with him, so she wouldn't like admit that was Val Kilmer. I'm like, Mom, it's Val Kilmer. He got huge.
And he's a great actor. He's a great actor. Don't get me wrong.
He was trying to follow in Marlon's footsteps again.
That's a hell of a point because Marlon got fat.
He was really going for it because he
Yeah, by the end, Marlon was big as a broadside of the barn. But let's pick another one. Pick another one. This is going to be, I'll do the picking this time. So what do I have, Beck?
You have 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Let's put, I'll pick 5.
What is in 5?
5 is,
Of course.
who is that? Christian Bale.
Mm.
All right, Ryan. So you've already kind of started off on Christian Bale earlier. You want to start off this discussion?
Yeah, I approve of this Batman.
Oh, let me say before you start, the movies he was in was Batman Begins in 2005, The Dark Knight in 2008, and The Dark Knight Rises in 2012. So he did 3 of them, which up until that time, the only actor to have ever done 3 Batman movies. So anyway, Ryan, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't care. And now Zach got me going. I think he was the best just simply because it was Nolan shit. Nolan was the best. Like he made those 3 films. I think you could have taken a guy I didn't want to be Batman and made him Batman during those 3 films, and it would have been all right. Like he just he put so much time and effort. Fantastic. I think it was the best Batman. I think they should have left it alone after, or like you said, they should have just let him do another one. They shouldn't have broke it up. Like, I don't know what people will have in this world against like breaking up good, like just for the sake of doing it. Like they broke up the Bulls like in the 90s, like for what? Oh, we're going to rebuild for 20 years. You fucking.
The thing we should point out about
to me, I'm still mad though about like it should have never been an Affleck Batman, and they should have just left it alone for 10 years, like I said earlier, because you would have had so much, you would have 10 years to find someone to redo it, or if Nolan has any interest 10 years from now from bringing it back up, you can give him a 10-year break. It's a lot of work to be just doing Batman all the time.
Well, I think you got a good point because that's something you could say with Spider-Man too. Is you need time between these reboots.
I couldn't believe. Like I thought we had just got done with Spider-Man, and then we're doing the remake of the first one, like which just came out. Like I don't understand like anymore. I really don't. I don't know. It's just
the problem with like the Nolan thing is you had Christian Bale from 2005 to 2012, so he's kind of set up as Batman for a good part of a generation. Like a lot of kids know Christian Bale as Batman. And then like 4 years later, well, less if you count when they announced, Ben Affleck is suddenly Batman. And then not only that, but you had Heath Ledger as the Joker. And then a few years later, you had Jared Leto as the Joker in Suicide Squad. So you hardly have time to like absorb one version before you get a totally different version. And now, not long after the Suicide Squad, you have, another Joker with Joaquin Phoenix. So it's not like it used to be in the old days where you had some time to there was Val Kilmer, and then a couple years later there was George Clooney, but no one really cared about those movies anyway because they were bad. Rebecca, what do you think about the Nolan films? Because you have a slightly different opinion, I gather.
Well,
Go for it.
Well, they're not my favorites.
You don't really?
Yeah, they're not my favorite. They're entertaining to me, but they're not my favorite Batman films.
I'm not a fan.
Now, what Nolan did was the anti-Joel Schumacher. Nolan went like totally realistic with it. And, looking back, especially at Batman Begins, you see stuff and it's like well, that's kind of, like the train and flying on the train. That's a little more like a comic book. But then by the time you got into the Dark Knight, it was really like real streets and it looked like real alleys and it was very real world grounded, and then Dark Knight Rises. What did you guys think of, obviously, there's the Heath Ledger thing. He was the Joker. And a lot of people just think that's their definitive Joker, especially, of a certain generation. And then you had Tom Hardy as Bane. And I'll be honest with you. Of the three, I'm not the hugest fan of The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, that's the one that.
Yeah. What did you think of the one with Bane in it, Dark Knight Rises?
I love that one. You suck. Did
you like that more than you liked The Dark Knight?
No, Dark Knight was almost perfect. It's hard beating that one. But I really liked the whole thing with Bane. I thought that was great. Which initially I didn't think so. I thought when I heard that was like going to be the villain in the third one, I was like, I don't know how much I like this. And then it was perfectly done, just perfect.
Now, the thing about Bane that I did like is, remember when just before they released The Dark Knight, they released the opening scene, like the first 10 minutes on the internet, and you got to see the whole bank robbery. They did the same thing before the release of Dark Knight Rises, and they released the whole sequence leading up to the plane flying away with Bane and Scott, the guy who was the scientist. Well, in that version they released online, the Bane voice was much more muffled. And they had some fan reactions, and they actually went back in the movie and he re-recorded his lines to make them a little bit clearer. And I'm kind of glad that they did that, because when I first saw that clip, that 10-minute clip of the plane sequence, and it was like, I was like, oh God, it's not gonna be the whole movie like that, is it? But then when they showed the movie, I could understand them. I'm glad they went back and changed that part, because you could understand him in the movie for the most part. I don't think I had much.
I don't remember him not being understandable at all. I thought it was great.
Well, you have to go back. If you go back and look at that 10-minute clip that they released before the movie itself, that was the original Bane voice.
Yeah, he sounded like Muchmouth from Fat Albert.
Yeah.
And they actually changed some of the lines too, because since his mouth was covered, if you go back and watch that original release, he says a couple different things. But that's the nice thing about having an actor's mouth covered, is when you re-record their lines, you can just say whatever you want to.
We could just loop the whole movie again.
You could.
No, there's been a lot of YouTube recreations using that. People putting their own stuff in there that have been pretty funny too. So check
and
those out.
I did like the voice. I thought it was a pretty crazy choice, because he's playing him as an English gentleman, and he's like this big strong guy, and it's not the voice you would expect to come out, and I kind of like that. I dug it. I know you probably didn't. She did. But I like the Bane thing, and I like the Dark Knight too. But Zach, do you have anything to say about the Nolan films?
Yes, I loved. Well, going back to the Batman Begins, I loved how he used Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow. I loved him using Heath Ledger as the Joker. Fucking hated Tom Hardy as fucking Bane. Hated Bane so much.
Okay, so you didn't like Bane either. So you're with Rebecca on that one. So me and Ryan are pro Bane. And you guys are against Bane.
Yeah, we're on that we hate Bane club.
Why?
I wasn't, but with all fairness, I didn't even like Bane in the comics, and I didn't even like his bit part in it was in
Batman and Robin.
Robin. When Poison Ivy turns him into Bane, or when she, meets him as Bane, and they kind of like go out. And I just never liked the concept of Bane, even in the comics. So I just didn't care to see him on screen again.
I'm glad you pointed out the Batman and Robin Bane, because I forgot about that. And let me just say this real quick:
horrible.
The Batman and Robin.
I don't remember at all.
It was terrible. I mean, it was a pro wrestler playing him, and that was the
Which
thing.
one?
I have no fucking clue. Some big buff guy. And the whole thing about Bane and Batman and Robin is he's stupid. Like he goes, I Bane, I Bane. He's like the Incredible Hulk. And if you read the comic book, Bane is a big bodybuilder kind of guy, but he's a genius. Yes. That was the idea, is that he has a genius mentality, but he also has super strength that can be enhanced with this venom. That he can hit himself. He hits this thing, and this venom, injects into him, and he gets even bigger and stronger. But he's never not a genius.
Why didn't they? I wonder why they didn't. Nolan didn't do anything like that in the movie.
Well, they did. Nolan did the genius part, but I think
I'm talking about the venom part.
Well, this is the reason. It was because he wanted to do the realistic thing, and he said that he couldn't figure out how to do the venom part realistically. So he just made it. Because the mask is what the venom came through in the comics, but in the movie, it's more like he needs the mask to inject painkillers. Because remember, if you take off if you obstruct the mask, he's in pain. Like he has so many body scars or something, or it has been beat up so much that his body is in constant pain, and he needs this anesthesia going through the mask. Which I dug that. That's fine if you don't want to use the venom. Which is a little bit of a far-fetched concept. I'll give that. So that was Christian Bale. I like Christian Bale. Rebecca, did you like Christian Bale?
I mean, he's fine. I just, they weren't my jam. Of course, I already had a jam for Batman, so.
Right, yeah. Well, and
so for me, and it's obviously completely different than what.
Yeah, and we all have, our thing, and a lot of people with Christian Bale, I have to point it out, is the voice. A lot of people didn't like the thing.
That was minus. I think a lot of it had to do with the voice of him, and then the last one, the voice of Bane. It just, I don't know, it just took me out of it a little bit.
Well, fair enough. Yeah,
but I thought it was fair though, just because it's supposed to be like from comic book beginnings. It's when he used it in Terminator that it ruined everything. God.
Did use it.
He didn't even change the voice. I'm still mad. Like he didn't even try. Like fuck.
And you're so mad about that. I think we've actually talked about this before on the show, but how the hell did that come up before this?
I just remember him ruining it was like the best trailer ever for a Terminator, and I went to IMAX and it sucked. God, it sucked.
It's like at every moment you're just expecting him to go, I'm John Connor, I'm Batman. But anyway, so we've mentioned the voice and we've talked about the movies, and I guess we'll move on to the next one. Zach, what did you think? You like Christian Bale?
Yeah. I mean, I liked him. I thought he was all right in each one.
Go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
But I thought he was all right. Like I said, I just didn't care for the storyline of The Dark Knight Rises, and I didn't care for Bane. But I mean, he's better than some. I mean, hell, he's better than Adam West.
Well, we might be picking Adam West next. I think it's Zach. It's your turn. Will you pick Adam West? Which ones does he have? Show him the cards.
1, 2, 3, and 6.
I'm gonna pick lucky number 6.
Lucky number 6. Is it Adam West? Will we get to hear about his? Oh, it's Kevin Conroy. Kevin Conroy was the voice of Batman in Batman, the animated series, which ran from 1992 to 1995. He also did a movie called Mask of the Phantasm in 1993. And he came. Oh, she loves the animated series, and so do I. Like when you were a kid in the
early 90s.
Say,
how did he get in this list? And now I see.
Yeah, that's right.
He was Mask of the Phantasm, Batman Beyond.
Biased.
He was
Killing Joke.
He came back for the Killing Joke a couple years ago.
Mark.
Now
he's a good Batman.
Yeah, I mean it's that voice. If you see him in person, you go, "Oh, that's not Batman." No. But when you hear that voice, a lot of
voice is Batman.
And even as Bruce Wayne, it's there's a little difference but it's not so.
I mean, just how Kevin is Batman when you hear his voice, it's just like Hamilton is a Joker. Mark Hamill is the Joker. It's just they have those voices, and you can't. It just works.
Now, I just have to stop it all right now because I know she's aching to do it. let me tell you a little something I know about Rebecca. I learned this almost right off the bat. The first crush Rebecca ever had was on a man named Mark Hamill. And she has been dying for years to get on this show and talk about Mark Hamill on the off chance that he might be watching. So, Rebecca, tell the audience about your fascination with the Joker and Mark Hamill.
Well, I didn't know Mark Hamill was the Joker. Of course, the show. I'm old, so the show came on when I was a kid, and I watched it every day when I came home from school. And then one day, my brother happened to tape it because he was at work for like a premiere episode, and we found out. And the credits, it was like, wait a minute. And we rewound it and paused it. It was like, oh, it's him. And then Mask of the Phantasm came out that December. And Entertainment Tonight had like a big cover story about it. And he was on there. And they showed him in the booth and they interviewed him. And I just thought he's like the coolest guy in the world. You know, he's the Joker. He's Luke Skywalker.
You can do it all.
He was in the big red one, you know.
He was in Corvette
Summer, you know, a classic teen film with Annie Potts playing a hooker, you know.
Hey, I like him in Body Bags.
Yes, that's a very, very good movie, yes.
Village of the Damned.
The Guyver.
Yeah. Oh my God! Now you're really. What's that? Watchers with Lisa Wilcox.
Watchers Reborn was the one.
Watchers Reborn. Pardon me. But
You
yeah,
guys watch a lot of movies.
well, if you're talking Mark Hamill, like Rebecca is gonna.
I'm usually like this until you mention him. Like, oh yes, I can finally join this conversation. But that rarely ever happens. So.
But as the Joker, like he is.
To me, he is the Joker.
That's a great voice that he does.
And people who have worked with him, they say that when he's in the booth, he's the only one of the few that stands up and performs while he's doing the voice. And there was it's on YouTube somewhere where it's kind of like a making of Mask of the Phantasm, and it came out at that time. And they show him in the booth, and someone kind of mentioned, you know, you could just film him and use that for, you know, to go off for the animation. And
Wow.
and then people were saying, yeah, he could have been the Joker on film because he's just he has that face. Particularly when you see the earlier Flash.
They should have used motion capture on him.
The early Flash series in the early '90s when he's the trickster. You know, the way he's like he does you know, you could kind of say, yeah, he could have done it.
He could have played the Joker.
He
Yeah,
could have.
I would watch. Well, if you did like a Batman Beyond movie.
Which I would like to. Well, I don't know about the Batman Beyond, but I would love to see. Well, I guess I should save that for when we get to him.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah, I know where you're going with that. Yeah, but the animated series, like that was a big part of my childhood. I loved that show.
And the introduction of Harley Quinn, which in the first episode that she was in, she was just a very small side character. And I think when they capture her, I think she says, I can't remember the exact line, but I think she says something about, boy, beauty school's looking better now. But then later they established that she, you know, was the psychiatrist. And but yeah, it was interesting to see the evolution of her, particularly during that season. Because I think at the beginning of that season when they introduced her, and then May of that year they did Harley Quinnade, and that was the episode that got me into Harley Quinn. And that's the one where Joker's got a bomb. He's going to blow up Gotham. So they say, we need someone that thinks like him. So they get her out of Arkham, and she teams up with Batman and Robin to find the Joker to stop this bomb. And it's a really good episode. It's probably,
So if
one of my favorite episodes.
If you guys are Harley Quinn lovers, you got to know where she came from. She came from the animated series.
Oh, yep.
And now look at her. She took off. She's getting her own fucking movie soon with Margot Robbie.
Do you remember in the 90s during the Joel Schumacher phase, there was talks. I heard rumors of Madonna playing her in the 90s.
I think that was a huge mistake.
I think so too. But I remember hearing that.
Yeah,
I thought it was like, well, if she plays her like Nikki Finn from Who's That Girl, maybe?
I don't know. I just don't see.
yeah.
Because it would have been a Joel Schumacher one too. So it would have been, you know, really stupid and cartoony.
Yeah. But a lot of the Batman stuff that I love the Riddler from the animated series. I love that he's in the suit, has the tie. You know, sometimes he gets in the little, but he's mostly in the suit, the bowler hat, and he's just very.
That's a good Joker.
Yeah, and that animated show had great scripts. Like the scripts were great. They were like really live action quality scripts. It was the best like animated show.
And they hit all the villains.
Yeah, and they did the stories right, and they got the personalities
Like
right.
the Clayface one.
Mhm.
That one was
That was
really
good.
And the oh god, what is it? The guy who was obsessed with time? That episode.
know
which
the
one?
Calendar Man.
I can't remember, but I just remember the episode. The guy, he's very OCD about being on time, and then I think Bruce or something said, "Oh, lighten up," and then he's late to one thing, and the judge says, "Well, you should learn to be on time," and he just flips out because his whole life has been
Time
and being OCD, so he goes crazy.
I don't remember that episode.
It was a good one.
They had Killer Croc on
Killer
there.
Croc.
They
Catwoman.
So,
I love the way they handled Catwoman in the show.
Yeah, that
Selena Kyle and
well, they really took their time with that show, and they really for early '90s, that was probably the best animated show, just in terms of writing. And Paul Dini wrote a lot of them. He's the one who
Yes.
created Harley Quinn, and he wrote some of the comic books later. But
and then it went from animated series to Batman and Robin, which I liked Batman and Robin, and then it went to Batman, Superman, Adventure Hour, and I felt like the animation suffered a lot. I
Well,
didn't care for the animation style in that.
you really got to stick. To me, I got to stick with the one that was called Batman the
Animated
Animated Series.
Series.
Once it passed like the 1994 mark, it was. I don't think it was as good. But anyway, so we've gone on about the animated series.
And we have
Yeah, I didn't see a single one of them. I'm sitting here like Will Ferrell, like I don't know what to do with my hands.
Well, we're about to give you something because we're about to jump into this. And whose turn is it? Does anybody know?
I think it's Ryan's turn.
Oh, Ryan, pick a number. 1, 2, and
Uh,
what's that bottom one?
3.
3.
Go 1.
1. Oh no.
Oh no.
T-Mac.
We are going to give him a lot to talk about.
Adam West, 1966, Batman the television show, and you can't forget about Batman.
Now these I watched.
See, what makes him so much better is because Batman just doesn't dance anymore, man. You got to bring him back dancing.
And he doesn't carry shark repellent.
And he has muscle tone now, which is something Adam West had no muscle tone.
What, you're not digging like someone's dad in a Batman costume?
That's what it was. It was
And
like throw dad in some satin tights and some shiny undies, and there you go. Because he had
MacGyver-like skills, man. Some of those
He had
jams
MacGyver-like
crazy.
I
Yeah.
think the most ridiculous was the soup episode where they tried to figure out what the lady was trying to spell in the soup, so they run it through the back computer.
they pour the soup in the back
It was
computer.
alphabet soup, so they had to figure out what message she had put in the soup.
And I love how everything on that show and in that movie had a label.
Yes.
It was like Batman didn't know what his shit was, so he labeled it as like Bat Mace,
Maybe he was.
Bat Phone.
He was.
Well, and I should probably tell everyone out there that the TV show ran from 1966 to 1968.
Yeah, 3
And
seasons.
afterwards-
3.
Yeah, and then they made a movie in 1966.
Yeah, and
But
that movie,
that's not like a true context though, because like that played in the 80s so much. I remember growing up as a kid, there was only like 5 channels and that was on all the time.
yeah.
So Adam, I had no idea this series had ended when I was a kid. Those cliffhangers were real.
I remember I watched it as a kid too.
Now the thing that really about that was the crossover episode with the Green Hornet.
Oh,
Because I enjoyed the Green Hornet TV show, and then I guess because Batman was more popular, it did last longer. But they kind of made it look like, oh, Robin's saving Kato. I'm like, Kato was played by Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee could snap him.
Yeah. Bruce
and
Ward-
Robin was played by Burt Ward, in case no one knew. And
Yeah.
You think about that together, yeah, no.
I don't think
I don't
Bruce.
know. I think a wrestler can get Bruce Lee.
You say a wrestler can?
Yeah, the right wrestler gets him on the mat. He's gonna get tapped.
I'm pretty sure Burt
Burt
Ward
Ward
was
was
not
not
the
a
wrestler,
wrestler.
though. I mean, he was like.
little bit of training, and intestinal
But
fortitude.
I'm buck compared to Burt Ward, okay? That's all we're gonna say.
Do you remember Burt Ward had like the green panties, but he had like
Yes.
flesh-colored tights?
Yes.
Like they wouldn't let him show his bare legs, so he just wore like flesh-colored tights for bare legs. It was very strange. And more, and I remember in the movie, because like right when Batman 1989, which we're about to get to, I hope, came out, my uncle gave me a VHS copy of Batman the movie from 1966, and I popped that shit in and I started watching it. And you know, my like 8, 9-year-old mind, I thought it was pretty cool, even when the shark got onto Batman's leg and he had to get
The rubber shark.
yeah, the rubber shark, and he had the bat. It had the bat shark repellent on it, and he sprayed it, and then the shark fell and it exploded because the shark had dynamite in it. It was a very, but at the time, you know, I was like a kid, man. And you know, I mean, Ryan, you know, in the early '90s, people had that fucking bat symbol everywhere. Like you couldn't go anywhere without a bat symbol.
I had the cereal.
And Ryan, did you have it like carved into your head or something?
No, but there's a guy here in town who identifies as Batman. Like, and he doesn't do like, it's not like the other people who like dress up like Batman for tips. Like, no, he just calls himself Batman.
Well, hey, man, it's Vegas. Why the hell not? Shit.
The characters here are like a Tarantino movie. It's great.
She pointed out, I always want to say something real quick. She pointed out the Batman cereal that came out in the early 90s. And let me tell you something. That was some nasty ass shit.
But you gotta.
Wasn't it like chocolate Lucky Charm?
No, it
No.
wasn't. It was like Captain Crunch, but it was
a
hairy.
Bad Captain Crunch.
It had hair. Like it had fucking hair on it. It had this
But
weird texture.
You still got that awesome Michael Keaton Batman bank. Do you remember that?
No,
it was
I
a plastic bank. Got the A big.
I had that.
Yes.
I
I had
remember.
like 3 or 4 of them.
I remember having a catalog of Batman merchandise that was like that thick. Like that's how much shit they were putting out in the early 90s after that first movie. I feel like we're neglecting Adam West, but I mean, he had no muscle tone. Everything was labeled. He had a cool, I mean, I remember as a kid, there was a car show and my dad took me and that Batmobile was sitting in the car show. And I had like a little picture of little bitty miniature LC with a big cheese on his face sitting in that Batmobile. And it was labeled. All the shit in there was labeled. I remember that.
Very
I got to see the Adam West mobile, the Adam West, Bat car, and then I got to see the Michael Keaton car as well, and that made me literally want to faint as a kid because I said that we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I wish I could have seen the Michael Keaton one because that was a badass Batmobile. That first one,
so epic.
The one that looked like some sort of an Art Deco sculpture, and it was like a Batmobile.
But it could take corners beautifully.
Yeah, it was like 20 feet long, but it could corner like. Anyway, I'm hoping eventually we'll get to Michael Keaton so that we can. Is it my turn?
Yes.
I'm gonna pick number 3.
Number 3. Yay!
Who made the envelope?
All
Who
right.
made the envelopes? This is like a David Stern situation.
I made the envelopes.
See, rigged.
It was, I'm not going into that because I want to talk about Michael Keaton. Because I've been waiting like an hour to talk about Michael Keaton. Now, when I was a kid,
my first favorite Batman.
He was your first favorite. He was the first Batman that I saw because I remember vividly going to see the movie in the theater. I remember what theater it was, and I remember watching the movie even though I was about 8 years old. That's how much of an impact the 1989 Batman had on me. I mean, you had
I have the same story with White Men Can't Jump.
I cannot relate to White Men Can't Jump, but I can relate to seeing Jack Nicholson for the first time as the Joker, which was pretty badass.
Yes.
And
his girlfriend with she's all mask thing on.
That was freaky.
That was
And this starts what we were talking about earlier about the Joel Schumacher light version of Batman, the cartoony, stupid, silly one. It all began with the 1989 Batman, which was a pretty dark movie for kids. It was the first Batman movie where Batman would kill a motherfucker. Like Batman, he had no problems killing folks in these Tim Burton movies.
He's taking names.
He throws a guy at one point down a stairwell on his head.
We're like, awesome.
Yeah, he did. I should say he did Batman in 1989. Then he did Batman Returns in 1992. Both were directed by Tim Burton. In the Batman Returns in 1992, he's setting people on fire. He gave a guy a bomb and threw him down a manhole, and the guy blew up.
I mean, look what happened to Christopher Walken's character at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, Mr. Mom was taking names in those movies.
Yes.
And that we should point out that people did not like the casting of Michael Keaton because you remember the year before that he was Beetlejuice, and then before that he was Mr. Mom. So people were like, "Mr. Mom's going to be Batman," and
Just
so
think it can always be
That's
worse.
what he had to do to get Batman.
well, he had to befriend Tim Burton.
Which Beetlejuice,
He just did Beetlejuice with Tim Burton, and for some reason, Tim Burton was on a Michael Keaton thing, and I think that's a good thing because I think he made a good Batman. Did you like Michael Keaton as Batman, Ryan?
I did. I thought he was all right. I mean, at the time though, like you said, he was killing everything, and I was young, so it was great.
Yeah, and I never noticed that. I remember when Batman Returns came out in '92, there were talk shows where they had parents on there talking about how their kids were frightened when they saw the movie, and it's too violent for children, and it's too dark.
but yet we're doing Happy Meal toys for it.
You're doing Happy Meal toys, and that's what Warner Brothers got scared about because the backlash of the violence in Batman Returns and with the penguins black shit coming out of his mouth and he's basically like a little monster, like it's very Tim Burton-y, But
it wasn't worse than South Park though when that came out because South Park had just so little. It was big enough to make a movie, but not big enough to where everyone knew what it was yet. And I remember the theater I was at when everyone like started rushing their kids out. Yeah.
And why a parent would take their kid to see? I mean, you have to know what South Park.
Well, no. We're talking about like early on. You got to remember, we're only a couple years in. It's been out 20 years now. But at the time, animated movie. So if you're just like with your kids and you're like, what, and you really don't watch TV all that much, you could get tricked. That this is not for kids. At the time, we're talking early on in the South Park run. So yeah, I remember as soon as the Uncle Fucker song came on, like they were all rushing out of the theater. That was.
Well, the thing about Batman Returns, it was no Uncle Fucker, but there was a lot of shit. Like at one point, Penguin bites a dude's nose off, and like parents were just like going a little nuts. I think they went a little too nuts because, like I said, I was like 11 years old. I went to see it in the theater, and I wasn't afraid by it.
Of course, my parents at that point.
That's a different time though, because now we've broken down every barrier. There's almost nothing that hasn't. We're all pretty much desensitized to everything now. So.
Yeah, back then, I guess it was a little more, this was pre-internet and, of course, all that kind of stuff. And I liked, obviously, Jack Nicholson. I liked the Penguin, even though he was a little monster with, white skin, like he's pale and shit, and he's got goo coming out of his mouth. Got Christopher Walken in there. I don't know how you could go wrong. You had Catwoman, who I think gave a lot of boys their first taste of puberty in her vinyl suit. Michelle Pfeiffer was just pretty amazing. I think that for me, the first Batman in 1989 is probably my favorite. Batman Returns, rewatching it, I saw a lot of stuff in there that's really weird. Like writing wise, it's got some crazy choices.
Speaking of her, aren't they redoing Scarface?
Do what now?
Wait, that wasn't her. I'm thinking of something else. Yeah.
Michelle Pfeiffer was in Scarface, yeah.
Oh, wait, yeah. Well, yeah. But yeah, I was right then.
Yeah. But the thing about the Michael Keaton ones is, and let's stay on point, guys. What's Scarface one? But the Michael Keaton one was very unusual. I enjoyed the film.
Batman to play Scarface.
Batman could have played Scarface. Actually, Batman had a villain that was a Scarface guy, the ventriloquist dude who had a scar on his face, and his name was Scarface, wasn't it? The little puppet. Well, anyway, we're almost out of time. We got another guy to talk about, and I know exactly who it is. We don't have to pick this one. It's Ryan's favorite. Batfleck. So.
I have nothing to say about this one.
So Zach doesn't like him. Ryan doesn't like him.
It's not him though. It's not a problem with Affleck at all. It's a problem with there should have never been this Batman. You should have never had
Good Will Hunting.
You should have never had a Batman to play. Like I like some of the stuff he's done. Like what was that one he directed? The Town was all right. What was the
Argo was the one that everyone got the Oscar nominations, whatever that.
Yeah, Argo was decent. What was the one after that? What was after The Town that he did?
Well, the first one he did was Gone Baby Gone. Then it was The Town. Then it was Argo.
I'm
And then
thinking about something after that, I think.
he was supposed to direct the three Part of Affleck's deal was he was going to come on as Batman so that he could get a trilogy of Batman movies to write, direct, and star in. And that'll lead us into the conclusion of this show here shortly. But that has kind of fallen apart because Ben Affleck has been slowly backing away from this Batman thing ever since Batman versus Superman. By the way, that was the first one he did. He said Batman versus Superman, Dawn of Justice in 2016. He did a little part in Suicide Squad the next year. And then he did Justice League, which was just a horrendous mess.
The DC stuff.
I haven't even seen it yet.
Justice League?
Yeah.
Justice League was a classic example of like, let's make a movie, then let's go back, rewrite it, remake it, and just sort of edit it all together and see what happens.
And they rushed it. They wanted an Avengers, and they didn't take their time. They just rushed it.
Yeah, instead of doing the standalone movies, DC's idea was let's just go straight into the team. And so the problem with that is you have to introduce like half the team while also doing a villain, while also explaining why they've all come together. And then it's a lot to do in 2 hours when no one knows who Cyborg, or unless you're a comic book fan, Cyborg and Aquaman were, because they hadn't really been introduced, or the Flash.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a crazy choice. And I think maybe Ben Affleck suffered from it a little bit. I was really skeptical. I don't mind Ben Affleck as Batman. I know that Zach might stone me for saying that, but I
actually wouldn't mind having. You should have just waited 10 years first.
I agree. It was too soon. I agree with that.
If they had a good script, it would have been.
It could be 90
script.
Ben Affleck is
you're making Batman movies for the sake of making Batman movies, and you shouldn't do that for the same reason you shouldn't just make Justice League, like you just said.
It all has to be justified, and as Rebecca said, it was the script and the direction you're going to go in. I thought I like the big bulky Batman, like he played it like really a big guy with the little bitty short horns and everything. I like the look of Ben Affleck as Batman, but he could have gotten some better movies. And I think the idea was we'll give him his trilogy and he'll shine in that, and he'll just be his movies. He'll have 3 Batman movies all on his own. And then he started backing away because originally he was going to write, direct, and star. Then it became, well, I'm not going to direct it, but I'll write and star. And then it became, well, I'm just going to write it, I'm not going to star it. Or it's like, and so eventually what happened is he just kind of said, I'll just produce it. And then that's where you get this new casting announcement, which we'll go into. The new Batman for the trilogy that was supposed to be directed, written, and starring Ben Affleck has now been recast. A guy named Matt Reeves is co-writing and directing it. And the new Batman that they've cast is Robert Pattinson.
Fuck.
Rob Pattinson from Twilight is going to be Batman.
Batman doesn't glitter. He doesn't sparkle.
Willem Dafoe says he's got the chin for it.
And in all fairness, they did just do a film together.
That's true. He's promoting The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Yes. I just thought that was hilarious.
So, what do you guys think about Rob Pattinson, Edward, being Batman?
Well, the first thing, I never thought I'd say this, but William Dafoe's opinion doesn't matter anymore. Because the moment that he said something good about that, I'm like, Dafoe, I liked you. Your opinion no longer matters.
He would have been a great Joker, too. He's got a great Joker face, Willem Dafoe.
Oh, that I agree with. But freaking Twilight as Batman, it's like, oh my God. Hi, I'm Batman.
Now, I have to get Ryan's opinion on Rob Pattinson. I've just been dying to hear what Ryan has to say about Twilight Batman.
I still haven't seen Twilight. I've done more rehearsals with people in Twilight than I've seen Twilight movies that I've actually seen. I don't know.
Well, it's a movie about vampires that sparkle. And then there's a girl in it, and she falls in love with a vampire. And they jump through trees, and there's a guy who likes to work out a lot, and he turns into a wolf, but he's not really a werewolf. He's just a shapeshifter. And then the last movie
are the vampires gay?
They act it, but I don't think they technically are.
Okay.
Now, Rebecca might
without having seen the movie, we're getting sparkling, and I don't know what you guys are talking about. I'm at a loss. I haven't seen the movie.
Well, most people, Twilight is
I
just
remember it
known.
made a lot of money. I just can't remember for the life of me. I can't even remember what I've seen. I can't,
I
nothing.
think the problem though is this. It's not even that people watch Twilight. It's just that they know Twilight was the vampire movie where they went in the sun and started sparkling, and it wasn't known for the greatest acting, and they know Rob Pattinson as being like the pretty boy guy who starred in it, and they're like, that's going to be Batman. I think that's the big thing. It's like not even watching Twilight, but just knowing, oh, that was the weird romantic vampire movie where they turned into diamonds.
They have any tests? They have any tests like audition footage? They have anything out of him portraying Batman in any way?
No. We just have people making memes and stuff that usually aren't flattering. But I mean, I'm not trying to talk. I'm not trying to talk the guy down. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that he's terrible. I don't want it to come across like I don't like Rob Pattinson. I'm just voicing Zach's concern and many other people's concern that the guy from Twilight that Edward from Twilight is going to be their new Batman for the next 3 films.
Wake up, people. This is what this world's come to.
Oh, it's locked down for 3 films now?
Yeah, the trilogy that was supposed to be Ben Affleck is going to go ahead, but it's going to go ahead with Rob Pattinson.
Complained about Ben Affleck. What would you rather have?
Would you rather have Ben Affleck?
There's always someone worse.
Right, because that's always what they say is you don't know how bad you have it, and so. But then again, that makes me sound like I'm trying to talk down Rob Pattinson.
But then after this, it's going to be like Hulk Hogan is Batman. It's just going to go downhill, or Macaulay Culkin is Batman. It's just going to go downhill.
That would be like if they said that Elsie Holt is going to play Batman. I'm sure. Well, actually, people might rejoice.
That'd be badass, dude.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm not. No.
I'll do it.
Ryan could be a good Batman.
Batman.
I want to see Ryan as like a Bond villain. Like I see Ryan as a Bond villain.
Yeah,
Mr. Bond.
That's accurate too.
Yeah. But anyway, so. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, someone recently pointed out to me, they said that to them what makes a good Batman is you're playing 3 characters. You're Batman, the detective Batman, and Bruce Wayne, the playboy, and then Bruce Wayne, the tormented, guy who's.
That's very true.
I think the Christian Bale movies did a good job of differentiating Batman, because really the Christian Bale movies are about Bruce Wayne, and it just happens to be that he's Batman.
You have to have, and the same person pointed out, you have to have someone who can be a good Bruce Wayne. You need a good Bruce Wayne, because that's who it's about, his turmoil and his,
Well, leading off of that, do you think Rob Pattinson is a Bruce Wayne?
I don't know. I don't think so, but then, there have been times where, like I said, Michael Keaton, they thought, what the hell is this? And
who's directing?
A guy named Matt Reeves.
Oh, I thought you said he was writing.
No, he's co-writing and directing. Yeah. And
what else did he do?
I have absolutely no idea. I think he's only done a couple of things before. But
and now he's doing Batman. That's bravo to him for pulling off that sale. Like
yeah.
I would like to see DC make a decent film again.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when I was a kid, I remember me and my brother talking like DC makes all the good movies and Marvel sucks. Because you had like the Incredible Hulk TV show and like the Captain America movie from the 90s. Yes. And DC had like Tim Burton's Batman. They had Christopher Reeve as Superman. They had all like the good movies. And now it's like flipped. Now Marvel owns the world and DC is just like struggling to catch up. Film-wise. But anyway, I don't want to belabor this point. I think we've had a good show about Batman. You want to have to find?
Well, I just want to say I want to see Michael Keaton as an old Batman.
She wants to see Michael Keaton as Batman Beyond.
Not Beyond, what is it? The one we were talking about.
Oh, you're talking about The Dark Knight Returns. Yeah. She wants to see Batman.
Are you aware Bat Dad has a channel?
No, I don't have any idea. What is that?
It's this guy that gives his kids advice while being Batman. He's called Bat Dad, and he's got a YouTube channel.
I did see one of the Vegas Batman impersonators get in a fight with a guy, and like Batman got body slammed.
No, years ago, like one Batman fought another. I can't remember if it was I had the video. I can't remember if it was a tourist Or if it was one, I think it was actually one Batman against another Batman, and then one Batman was way better at like fighting than the other Batman and suplexed him.
Oh shit! See, when I saw it, that could be you, Ryan. Like I imagine you suplexing an imposter Batman on the
You're
street.
not Batman. I'm Batman.
Yeah, I'd have to care about him taking my gig, which isn't being Batman. So
Yeah.
Ryan is like, I'm gonna suplex you. No, I'm gonna.
it's much more likely to happen to like random guy from China who's stealing my play.
Well, I think we've exhausted the bat. You want to have one more?
No,
Go
I'm
ahead.
good. I was just gonna say we could just do a cage match of all the actors who played Batman and see who comes out alive.
Well, we can get
Val Kilmer is going to be the first one out.
Yeah, and Adam West.
Adam
I want
West.
to see the WWE entrances of all of them.
Adam
No,
West,
that's
we're gonna
that.
need a shovel
Val
of
Kilmer
flashlight.
can take Twilight.
Say that again, Zach.
Val Kilmer can still take on Twilight, hands down.
I'll give you that. Val Kilmer could have cancer for 20 years. He's going to take off Rob. I shouldn't say that because that sounds like I'm beating him down. I'm not trying to do that. But anyway, we're going to end on a positive note. Rob Pattinson, Zach is not a fan. I say, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Let me see the movie. Let me see the context of it. It might work. It might not. Could be a Michael Keaton thing where he shocks everybody. Do I really see him as the Batman character? I could see him more as Bruce Wayne, like a young, pretty boy Bruce Wayne than Batman, but he might surprise me. Who knows? Anyway, we've run over our time, but we had a lot to talk about, like 7 people and like 10 dozen movies. So, Ryan, thank you for joining me, man.
Yep, no problem.
And Zach, thank you, sir. In spite of your harrowing experience yesterday, Batman didn't save you, but I'm glad you're all right. So,
Yeah, Batman's a punk ass bitch. That's because Twilight's now Batman and he ain't protecting no one.
well, that's Rob Pattinson doesn't care about you, man, because you keep talking him down. You got to talk him up. But anyway, guys, I appreciate you guys for watching the show. Subscribe to the channel. And Beck, I almost forgot you. Thank you for being on the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for watching. And until I see you next week, take care of yourselves.